This is David Seltzer from AngelsWin.com speaking today with Angels great Tim Salmon. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Let's talk about your transition to the broadcast booth. How's that going for you?
It's been a good transition. It's been a lot of fun in some ways, and challenging in other ways. It's stretched me. You learn that it's definitely a trade. There's skills that I'm learning right now, and it's been challenging at times.
What are some of the biggest challenges you've had?
Well, as a player, I'm not shy to talk on camera or put a microphone in front of my face, but as a player, when they put a microphone in front of your face, you talk as much as you like, and that's your soundbite. As on this side of it, even though I was a former player, my sound bites are much shorter, much condensed. I have to be really concise with what I say, and so just kind of organizing my thoughts and really deciding with the vast knowledge that I have, trying to figure out what's the most important aspect of whatever it is we're talking about to really present to the fans, because I have a tendency to want to elaborate and just share as much as I can.
Let's talk about some of your prep work. I mean, what do you do during a game to get ready for the post-game show?
The night before or early the next morning, our producer will send us a format sheet. When I do the pre and post game show, everything is formatted. So we have a half-hour show, 3 breaks, 4 breaks, and so each one of those segments lasts 7 minutes or 6 minutes, whatever, and it's broken down in all these little parts that we all play a part in. And we have a host and then 2 analysts, myself and Jose Motos. So it's just kind of jockeying through those different parts. So for me to be able to go through and look at it and decide what parts that I'm going to have to be prepared for and start doing some homework on it, and then really the key for me is how and why. It's not so much spitting out stats or numbers or saying something that everybody already knows. It's why is this different or whatever. So so that's some of my work going into my prep work, and then get to the ballpark and we break it down, get ready, and then I spend my time out during batting practice just kind of finishing up some minor details, maybe talking to a few players. So for instance, maybe talking to Trumbo, say, how are you going to face this guy tonight? Just kind of comparing notes with the players and seeing if it's right on with what I was thinking.
Do you ever share tips with them?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, not so much tips that I've learned from my work, but just in general, maybe a hitting tip or an outfield tip, or as I would as a coach in spring training. These guys sometimes just like to have a veteran around that they can bounce something off once in a while, and I'm available for that. But it's more than anything, it's just continuing to build rapport with the players and getting to know them.
So, imagine you're Trumbo. I mean, you were an incredible outfielder in your time, but how do you learn to play outfield at the major league level?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, as much as you think playing right field, anybody could do it. It's still the big leagues, and ask Mr. Cruz from the Rangers about playing right field during the World Series, on a ball that should have been caught. So there's no doubt that it's challenging at whatever level you're playing, and you have to be prepared. You got to put your work in, and for him, because he's playing right field, left field, first base, third base, he's got a lot more work to put in day in and day out.
What have you seen in terms of his growth, especially at the plate?
He's definitely matured. I think this year has been a tremendous step for him forward. You got to think last year at this time he was still trying to just prove to himself that he belonged. He had some holes in his swing, some different things he was working on. Whereas this year he's much more confident in that, has a better idea. And it all starts with confidence. When you get into that second year and you know that you belong and you have the ability to play here at the high level, and then you can relax and just really start fine-tuning your game. And I think that's where he's at. I think that's what we're seeing is a player that's more mature at the plate. Now, saying that, it hasn't been easy on the defensive side of things, having to juggle all the different positions and everything, and that's where I give him even more credit, is the fact that he's been able to be productive offensively, not knowing where he's going to be in the lineup every night or where he's going to be playing.
And also not letting whatever happens on the field affect what he does at the plate.
Yeah, especially some of those early games at third base. That could have really derailed him in a lot of different ways, but he was able to separate the two, and that's the key, is regardless of what position you play, you always want to separate the offense from the defense, and he's been able to do that.
Let's talk about Trout. What do you see in that guy?
Well, a lot of the same superlatives that everybody else is seeing. I mean, he's fantastic. He's a catalyst. He's got a high ceiling. There's just there's so much excitement, bottled up in one player here. Every night you're just waiting to see how it's going to come out. He's for a 20-year-old kid, shows tremendous maturity. Much like I was saying with Trumbo, where that first year Trumbo had was proving to himself that he belonged. Trout, for some reason, has this mindset that he belongs at 20, and that's
amazing.
That's pretty rare. And but there again, I think that's why he has that swagger and that confidence in that play to his game that has made him successful thus far.
Would you be happy to see him follow in your footsteps from 1993?
You mean as far as Rookie of the Year?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Anybody with a fishy last name.
Let's talk about the transition and the turnaround of the team. What did you notice that was different from, say, April to May?
Well, I don't think. Baseball is a funny game. Sometimes you're hitting the ball well and you're not getting hits, and other times you're not swinging it well and you're getting hits. It's one of those crazy games where momentum plays a role, kind of mojo plays a role. You get in a funk as a group, and you're all looking around like, why are we in a funk? And then other times everybody's hitting, and you're like, what are we doing right here? It's the way the game goes. And I think that was part of the issue early on for the Angels. I think the fact that the bullpen woes they had early on maybe lost some games early on that could have been good momentum games that carried over to the next day. And sometimes when you're not necessarily swinging the bat well and you're not scoring a ton of runs, but you're maybe scoring just enough to win, and you're getting good starting pitching, and then the bullpen falls apart and loses it, I think that can be a little bit of a blow to an offense. Like, okay, how many runs do we have to score to win? And it puts pressure on the group. And then you had some individual things with, Albert, of course, wanting to play, prove himself and play well. And, you just had some guys in the lineup that, as a whole, weren't swinging it well. So we've kind of come full circle on that. The Angels are, the guys are building some confidence at the plate. They're taking much better swings, and you can tell by the way guys are swinging the bat right now that I think they're beyond their April lows.
What was it? I mean, as a player, you often would get off to a slower start, and then you would is it just confidence? What is it, that as a player that just clicks all of a sudden?
Well, for me, I don't know if it was, I wouldn't say necessarily confidence. I was always a slow starter, and I always equated that to the fact that a guy that hits in the heart of the order, you come out of spring training where 90% of the pitch you're seeing are fastballs. You don't see enough curveballs in spring training to get a guy like me or a guy like Albert ready for what we're really going to see once we play under the lights, because you can be seeing fastballs all spring long, and all of a sudden you get under the lights, those guys start dropping off their curveballs on you. Well, it takes probably 20, 30, 40 curveballs, or maybe 20 or 30 at bats, where they're pitching you backwards, for the big guys in the lineup to kind of find that timing and that rhythm and that swing. And so when you're going through that period of time, you kind of digress, where you go from being able to hit the fastball real well, you're kind of giving up on that so that you can make adjustments and hit the curveball. And then you find you're in that kind of that in-between stage where now you're not hitting anything, but eventually, the body figures out the rhythm and the timing of being able to adjust from a fastball to a curveball, and for me that was the difference.
How important was it to have a good table setter, say like Trout right now, getting on base? And how much did that really affect your?
Yeah, I really believe anytime you're talking about a lineup, it is about who's hitting in front of you and who's hitting behind you. To have a guy like an Eckstein or Ersty that worked the count, got on base. Anytime the guys are on base, the pitcher's diverting his attention. He only has 100% of concentration.
Right.
Where's he putting it? Is he putting 30% on the runner? Now he's got 70% for me? Well, that means I'm going to get some mistakes. Or if it's a guy that can steal bases and run the bases well, now the catcher's thinking, hey, this guy might be stealing, I'm going to throw down some fastballs rather than throw all the changeups and curveballs. So there's no doubt that having different guys hitting around you makes a huge difference. And I think for this Angel lineup, ever since Vernon Wells went down, and they had some injuries, and then when Trout came up, the top of the lineup's been pretty consistent. You're seeing the same guys, and for a guy like Albert Pujols to see a guy like Trout consistently putting together good at bats and getting on base and making things happen, I think that's translating itself into maybe some better at bats for Albert.
For Angel Angels fans, having you in the booth has been something we've talked about for a very long time. We're very glad to see you. You bring quite a bit to the team, the broadcast, just the personal experience, the connection. So, on behalf of Angels fans, thanks for an awesome job out there.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.